at an incredible value. Order 1 dozen assorted roses, get an extra dozen roses for free. That's amazing, guys. 24 beautiful roses plus a vase for just $29.99. That's 40% off the regular price. Surprise her tomorrow or lock in this great price right now for Valentine's delivery. Don't wait to get 2 dozen roses at 40% off the regular price. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com from your desktop or mobile device. Click on the radio microphone in the upper right-hand corner and enter Dan. That's 1-800-Flowers.com. Enter Dan. Again, 2 dozen roses at 40% off the regular price. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com and enter Dan.
The biggest guests wake up with Mike and Mike.
Nick Saban with us. You're concerned about how does a playoff and a bowl system coexist?
It used to be a bowl game was a big thing. Well, now if you're not in the playoffs, it's like, why are we even doing this?
What is your perspective now on the whole concept of coaching in the NFL?
Right now I'm pretty happy with where I'm at and just, haven't been motivated to go anywhere else or do anything else at this time.
Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Tennis season gets off to a sizzling start down under as the year's first major is on the other side of the planet.
Serena Williams again at the Australian Open. Novak Djokovic, simply the best Australian Open champion for a 5th time.
Which side are you on? The Australian Open, January 17th to 31st on ESPN, ESPN2, and streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. What's a bigger issue Sunday? Carson Palmer's recent dip in play or the Panthers' secondary? Russillo and Cannell ask former NFL DB Darren Woodson which concerns him more at 2:45 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Make plans for NBA Saturday Primetime on ABC, where the league's greatest stars take center stage.
Jimmy Butler gives Chicago the lead.
Jimmy Butler, Derrick Rose, and the Bulls head to Cleveland, where LeBron James plans to put on a show.
Here comes the show. Oh, what a block from James.
NBA Saturday Primetime. Bulls, Cavs at 8:30 Eastern. Saturday on ABC and streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. Presented by La Quinta.
Hi, it's Paul Feinbaum. Are we witnessing the final chapter of Peyton Manning's legendary career? Where does he rank among the all-time greats?
The Paul Feinbaum Show, Tuesday on the ESPN Radio app and the SEC Network.
The NBA on ESPN. This is your game. Steph Curry and the Dubs bring the fun to Wednesday night. This is Pain. Sunshine, rain. Warriors, Bulls at 8 Eastern, Hawks, Blazers at 10:30. Tomorrow on ESPN and streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. Presented by State Farm.
This is Tammy, previously on the Paul Feinbaum Show.
Reggie Ragland, the All-American linebacker who was such a big part of Alabama's success this year. You've got your whole career ahead of you in the pros, but no matter how far you go, it probably won't get much better than Monday night.
If I get an opportunity to win a Super Bowl, it'll be great, but there's going to be nothing like spending time with your brothers, and we have lifelong memories, and I'm never going to forget those memories because they turned me really to the person that I am.
The Paul Feinbaum Show, weekdays at 3 Eastern on the SEC Network.
X Games Aspen, the world's most talented athletes rock the mountaintop.
Oh my goodness, that's never been done on Earth.
Going for gold in snowboard superpipe, big air, slope style, and snowmobile freestyle.
Incredible!
It's winter's premier action sports event.
So massive!
X Games Aspen, January 29th through 31st on ESPN, ABC, and streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. Sponsored by America's Navy.
ESPN Radio counts down to football's golden game. 19 days and counting. Trent Dilfer.
Super Bowl 35, winning it. I think my most defining memory of the game is when it's over, holding Ray Lewis on the sidelines, just embracing with a hug and realizing the long road that we had gone down, what an epic season it was, and then we finished where we started.
Continuing coverage of the Golden Game begins with Mike and Mike at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Streaming your hometown sports live 24/7. Check us out at SemoESPN.com or live on ESPN 1220 KTIR. Cape Girardeau.
ESPN Radio Sports Center.
I'm Christine Lisi. At this hour, Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger on 93.7 The Fan said he's been told he won't need major surgery on his shoulder injury. Also said he doesn't understand why the Broncos thought he was pretending to have an injured shoulder, that he took a pain-killing shot to get through Sunday's game, first time in his career he's done so, and added he wouldn't have been able to finish the game without it. The Eagles today will be introducing new head coach Doug Peterson. In addition, Jim Schwartz expected to interview for Philadelphia's defensive coordinator job. Browns and Jags also interested in Schwartz for their defensive coordinator positions. NBA Hornets forward Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, out since October 3rd with a torn labrum in his right shoulder, has been cleared for fall contact practice by the team orthopedist. There is no timetable, however, for his return to the active roster. NHL, the streaking Blackhawks go for their 12th straight win when they play in Nashville tonight against the Predators. Rafael Nadal and Venus Williams both bounced in the first round at the Australian Open. Nadal fell to Fernando Verdasco, only his second loss ever in the first round of a major. Venus lost in straight sets.
Want an easy way to see if you could save money on car insurance? Geico gives you 3. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. Go online to geico.com or stop by the Geico office nearest you. 3 ways you could save 15% or more.
This is Mike Cooper for the best in local sports talk and play-by-play. It's SEMO ESPN.
This is a local sports center update from Southeast Missouri's ESPN Radio Network.
I'm Eric Shawn. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Bertrand Law Firm. Visit TreyBertrand.com. Longtime St. Louis Cardinals radio broadcaster Mike Shannon will no longer broadcast road games. The 77-year-old Shannon is entering his 44th season in the broadcast booth. He did fewer than a third of the team's road games last year. Rick Horton and Mike Claiborne are expected to do more radio this year in Shannon's absence, according to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And the Cardinals have revealed the names of 8 players who will be on the ballot for this year's Cardinals Hall of Fame. Fans will vote on the finalists. 2 players will be elected. The 8 names are Chris Carpenter, Scott Rowland, Jason Isringhausen, Mark McGuire, Edgar Renteria, Matt Morris, Keith Hernandez, and Joe Torre. SEMO men's basketball has a home game tonight against Hamilton LaGrange. It is a $2 Tuesday. $2 tickets. Special concession items are also $2. Hot dogs, small sodas, small popcorn. Tip-off is at 7 on SEMO ESPN 92.9 and Real Rock 99.3. On the ice, the Blues beat the Penguins 5-2 at Scott Trade. Vladimir Tarasenko racked up his 25th goal of the season. Paul Stastny a goal, 3 assists. 60 points now for the Blues.
Get Sports Center updates every hour on Southeast Missouri's ESPN 92.9 FM and 1220 AM.
You're grilling for everyone on game day, and people are hungry. More than that, they're hangry, and it's 95 degrees out, and they're thirsty. That's right, people are thrangry. They need to chill, and that gives you an idea. You remember Coors Light is filtered and bottled cold, so you pass some cold ones out. Suddenly, it's like they're snowboarding the majestic Rocky Mountains, speeding away from the peaks of Thrangly and down the slopes of All Yes, so they make with the cheering and let you get with the grilling. Well done. Now it's time for your Coors Light. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Great beer, great responsibility.
You've upgraded from your old flip phone. But what about that old vehicle in your driveway? It's time to get into the new with Ford. New is Ford, America's best-selling brand, because new is the power and performance of available EcoBoost engine technology, and new can practically park itself with available active park assist. So get into the new with Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer or go to Ford.com for current offers. Sales claim based on 2015 calendar year sales, January through November.
The conversation has been growing about Wings Etc. See, Wings Etc. has those award-winning jumbo wings. They're popular for both dine-in and carry-out. Now, the word is getting out about Wings Etc.'s appetizer lineup. From the ultimate nachos to the deep-fried pickle spears, frankly, they're irresistible. Friends are sharing time together at Wings Etc. They've got dining rooms filled with HD TVs tuned to the best sports programming, including NFL Sunday Ticket. The people at the next table are talking about Wings Etc.'s daily half-pound lunch special, starting at just $6.49. Plus, Wings Etc. has food and drink specials throughout the week, including 59-cent wings every Monday. Plus, there's the kids menu, and Wings Etc. is family-friendly with video games in the dining room. And the whole community is excited about how Wings Etc. is locally owned and operated, and they're proud to support local athletes, their families, schools, and teams. I guess Wings Etc. is a really big deal around here.
And now, Your ESPN radio network. Local weather forecast.
National Weather Service says the winter weather advisory in effect for tonight, with clouds today and a high of 27, then snow likely before midnight mixed with sleet, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches possible by early tomorrow. Chance of snow and sleet in the morning tomorrow with a high of 33, then another batch of snow, freezing rain on Thursday night with a high hovering near 34.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN radio network.
This is Mike Golick for the best in local sports talk and play-by-play. It's SEMO ESPN.
This is a proud presentation of Mississippi River Radio Sports, the sports authority.
Check this out right here.
It's time now for the Redhawks Coaches Show on the SEMO ESPN Radio Sports Network. The Southeast Coaches Show airs every Tuesday at noon on ESPN 92.9 FM and 1220 AM from Wings Etc. in Cape and Jackson. This is your chance to delve deep into the Redhawks basketball season with head coach Rick Gray. So what do you say?
Come on, let's go.
Let's go. Let's go live to Wings Etc. on SEMO ESPN.
Welcome in. We're at Wings Etc. for the Kofeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show. We are at the Cape Girardeau location. So if you have not made plans for lunch, or even if you have, maybe you could change them. You could join us. We are here every Tuesday during basketball season with head coach Rick Ray. We've got talented freshman Tony Anderson. He's going to join us a little bit later on in the show. He's becoming a double-figure scoring machine lately for the Redhawks. So Tony Anderson, a Columbus, Ohio native, is going to join us coming up a little bit later on in the show. Want to invite you to join us not only for their award-winning jumbo wings here at Wings Etc., but they have a full complement on their menu. That includes their freshly made burgers, their quesadillas, their wraps, their subs, their entree salads. They have smoked ribs here at Wings Etc., not only in the Cape location where we are today, but also in the Jackson location. They are famous for their appetizer lineup, including their ultimate nachos. And if you have not tried their spicy deep-fried pickle spears, let us make a recommendation for you for that. You'll notice all of the flat-screen, high-def TVs when you walk in. They've got, right now, they've got a lot of football. I see some Australian Open. I see some gymnastics. If it is on the televisions, then you're getting the very latest in the world of sports. They have the NFL ticket, so that means you can come out and watch the AFC and NFC championship games. They have a laid-back atmosphere here at Wings Etc. So we invite you to stop by, and we're going to be on the day of the big game, February 7th. We don't know who is going to be in the Super Bowl, but we will have our big game party at Wings Etc. We're going to be in both Cape and Jackson. So that more details on that to come. And we want to let you know Coach Rika Patterson of the Red Hawk women's basketball team is going to join us next week. They're getting set for a big showdown, a first-place showdown at SIU Edwardsville tomorrow night. That's going to be a nationally televised game on the American Sports Network. I believe locally here it's on WDKA. If you can't make the trip to Edwardsville, of course, we'll have the radio coverage on SEMO ESPN. So good luck to the Red Hawk women. The Red Hawk men are in action tonight. Coach Rick Ray is here. We normally don't have a coach's show on game day, so that probably puts a little wrinkle in your schedule, a game day broadcast.
Yeah, it's the first time for me, but, really on game days, this is a day when I can get a lot of things done because the hay is out kind of in the barn a little bit. So usually what I do is I get caught up on a lot of paperwork, returning emails, doing some of the things haven't been able to do because of scouting reports and watching film. So usually game day is a little bit more laid back for me because I'm getting caught up on some things.
Not only caught up on the paperwork and things of that nature, but recruiting. I know you were out recruiting. You did not take the bus to the last trip to Tennessee Tech because you were on the recruiting trail. How'd it go?
Well, I tell you what, I saw some talented kids. The easy part in recruiting is identifying guys that are good enough to help you. The hard part is getting those guys. So the identification part becomes to say, hey, he can help us. He's good enough. But now it's like figuring out a way, an avenue to get that particular young man into your university. We'll have tomorrow off as well. So I'll take off recruiting. I always try to make sure I go out recruiting on our off days. My goal in recruiting is to make sure as a head coach that I'm more involved in the recruiting process than any other head coach. So as far as phone calls, text messages, face-to-face contact, getting in the car and driving them, seeing them play. I tell that young man that I'm going to be in your gym as a head coach much more than anybody else. And I said, it's great if you have a relationship with an assistant coach on a particular team, but you better make sure you have a solid relationship with that head coach, because the head coach is the one making the decisions as far as who's going into the game and playing time.
Establishing relationships with guys when other coaches are recruiting them as well, that's got to be a tedious process.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It takes effort. But the one thing I tell recruits is really with technology, it's easy for us to make contact with recruits. There's direct message Twitter, direct message Facebook. You can text them, you can call them, and all those things are really fairly easy. But when a person gets in a car or gets on a flight and comes in and sees you, that takes effort. And so you better make sure you pay attention to the head coaches that physically set foot in your gym and you have face-to-face contact with them. And I also tell them this, even during the AAU July recruiting period, we'll say we're going to Orlando to see a young man play or to Louisville to see a young man play. But actuality is when I get done with that game, I'm going over to another court and see another guy play and then another guy play. So, but when you go and watch a kid at his high school, you came just particularly for him. So, that trip is special. So, just making sure those guys understand that we're invested in them and recruiting and we're targeting them. I think that's what makes the difference.
How much different is it for you recruiting at the mid-major level, if you want to refer to that, at Southeast Missouri State, Ohio Valley, versus the high major level where you were when you were at Clemson, when you were at Mississippi State, when you were at Purdue? How different is this process for you? But now I know you did recruit at Indiana State, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. And I think the biggest difference is the fact that when you're at a mid-major, what you do is you got to make sure you recruit a lot more kids, because you don't know where that young man is going to develop and end up at. So there may be a guy that's a junior in high school or a sophomore in high school, and if he continues to get better, he may end up going above your head and going to a high major. But you better make sure you get a relationship with that young man early, because if he stays at that mid-major level, you want to say, hey, we've built a relationship with you. And so now that kid feels invested in you and wants to come to your place. But it also could be a situation where a kid is a low major, and so he might develop into being a mid-major kid. So you got to stay involved with him, because now all of a sudden, if he blows up, you don't want to be on the outside looking in. So you got to recruit that kid. So you recruit a lot more people at the mid-major level. At high major level, there's just not a lot of guys that can play in the ACC or the SEC or the Big Ten. And so what you do is you recruit less kids, but you recruit more of the people around them. Those guys at that high major level tend to have more people involved in their recruiting process. So not only do you recruit the young man, but you recruit the AAU coach, the uncle, the guy who was his, middle school coach, anybody that you think is going to have a say-so in his recruiting, you spend that time with them as well.
Are you seeing more now guys bouncing from high school to prep school simply because of basketball?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think it's two reasons. It's because of basketball, or the young man hasn't done very well at his particular high school, or the young man doesn't have the academic resources in order for him to get better at that particular high school. So I think it's twofold. I think it's one, people purely transfer because of basketball or competition or exposure. And then some kids really transfer because they need help and they feel like going to this particular school will help them academically get eligible for NCAA.
When you are establishing a relationship with a young man, how true or false is this statement? They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Any truth to that statement?
Well, I think each individual person is different. So I think it's unfair to kind of lump everybody into one category. But there's some people where like relationships and your time invested in recruiting that young man really means a lot. And then there's some kids where you can spend a lot of time recruiting a young man, and then all of a sudden somebody that's flashier, bigger, high major comes along, and then you're just afterthought. So it all depends on that particular person. But what you like to do is you like to see your time recruiting the young man end up meaning something to that person and the people around him.
Do you remember the first recruit I mean, you're an assistant coach. This is your first chance to nail a guy, to sign him up and get him to sign the letter of intent. Do you remember your very first recruit that you delivered?
Yeah, it was actually when I was a graduate assistant over at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and I was recruiting a young man named Donnell Osley, and he was at Chicago Julian High School. And so I'm a graduate assistant, and so that's the best way to learn how to be an assistant coach as a graduate assistant at the D2 level, because what you are is you're an assistant coach. They don't have the limitations and the rules that you have at the Division I level. So when I was a Division II graduate assistant, I was on the floor coaching, I was doing scouting reports, and I was recruiting. And so I was making trips to Chicago and starting to get relationships. And so this young man, I spent a lot of time with him. And then he started to get some more offers and actually got a couple of Division I offers. But because of the relationship that I had built with him, his grandmother, his high school coach, I ended up being able to get that young man. And that was my first recruit that I ever got. And that guy, the head coach there, Lauren Jackson, actually ended up having a lot of good players in Chicago and now is at a head coach at a prep school in Florida. So that relationship is still paying off to this day.
Do you remember what is one of your best stories of a guy that you invested so much time in and you were just sure at the wire he was going somewhere else because maybe a bigger school got involved late, but they stayed with you?
Yeah, I think the biggest example of that is David Moss. David Moss was a young man that I recruited at Indiana State. And he was on that team. I don't know if you remember the name Eddie Curry.
Yeah.
Eddie, he was on that same high school team. That team was loaded. They had guys go to Purdue. They had a guy go to Illinois. They had Eddie Curry. So they were loaded with talent. And he was a young man that really didn't get involved in AAU basketball and ended up kind of blowing up at the end. And so actually the head coach now at Tennessee State, Dana Ford was in that same recruiting class. And so I tried to convince Coach Waltman, my head coach at Indiana State, not to take Dana Ford and wait on this kid named David Moss. And Coach finally did, but he said, now, if we don't get David Moss and we passed on Dana Ford, I'm firing you. So
the pressure was on.
Yeah, the pressure was on to get David Moss. And he actually started to get some, like St. Louis offered him. He started to get some offers that were above our head. DePaul offered him, and he actually ended up coming to Indiana State, and he ended up being newcomer of the year and freshman of the year in the league once he came to Indiana State. So that was a young man that I felt like kind of stayed loyal to me throughout the whole recruiting process when he got some higher offers and ended up paying dividends for us.
How long did it take you to get comfortable as a full-time recruiter?
Well, I tell you what, the biggest way you learn from recruiting is the ones that you don't get. And especially when you get to that high major level. When I got to Purdue, the first thing I did, I was like, hey, I've made it. I've made it. I'm high major. So I start pulling up all the top 50 and McDonald's All-American guys and things like that, and started recruiting those guys hard. And the guy that was on staff with me, Paul Lusk, who is now the head coach at Missouri State, and the other staff member was there was Conzo Martin, who is now the head coach at Cal. So we had a really good staff. And Paul Lusk, told me, hey, you're wasting your time recruiting these guys for the McDonald's All-Americans and top 50 guys. You're not going to get them. And I'm like, hey, we're Purdue. We're a good team and things like that. So I invested a lot of time in recruiting some guys that were really, really good, that always had us in the top 3, top 5, and would take an official visit there. And then after that first year, I didn't get any of those guys. And so then I started to figure out, where to invest my time, making sure that we really indeed, because you can get in someone's top 3, you can get in someone's top 5, but did you ever really have a chance to get them? And that's what I had to figure out as an assistant, especially at that high major level.
How crushing is it when you have invested a lot of time and effort and you feel confident, and then at the last second they go somewhere else?
Oh, it's a heartbreak. And the biggest thing is when those kids or people around you don't tell you what's going on. We were recruiting a big Lithuanian kid at Purdue. And so I had just gotten off the phone with him 2 days ago, and he told me he was coming to Purdue. He's going to be a Boilermaker. 2 days later, I read in the paper that he's signed and committed to go to Ohio State. And it was a heartbreak. And, it's just something you kind of live and you learn to make sure you follow up. You thought everything was done. Then all of a sudden, like, things change in that 48 hours. So, that was my biggest wake up call right there, was like, hey, I got this big 6'11" Lithuanian kid coming. He's told me he's coming. I put him on the phone with Coach Painter. Everything was good. And then 48 hours later, I see that he's committed and signed to Ohio State. So, you get burned in this recruiting process, and you kind of make sure you live and learn from it.
Did you recruit Carl Landry at Purdue?
Yes, recruited Carl. But Tracy Webster, who is now the associate head coach at Cal, he was a guy that was a point guy for there. But I knew Coach Spark, Dan Sparks, had been there for a long time, so it was kind of a team thing. But Tracy Webster was the point man there.
Who's the best player you ever recruited?
That's a great question. I would say the best player, as far as like what they actually end up doing, would be David Moss. David Moss at Indiana State, I thought, was the best player. But then when we had that great recruiting class that we had at Purdue with Etwan Moore and Robbie Hummel and those guys, and obviously Etwan's the guys in the pros now. And so I would say that recruiting class is the best class, but David Moss is probably the best individual player, I think.
Now, Hummel got injured, right?
Yes.
And do you think he was a pro, maybe an NBA prospect before he got injured?
No, he still ended up being a pro. He got drafted
okay.
and actually played with the Minnesota Timberwolves for 2 years up until this year. And he still had a chance to be on the Minnesota Timberwolves roster, but actually wanted to play. So he decided to go overseas because he wanted to play.
So he was good enough and was playing in the league, but made the decision, hey, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Right. So, and I really believe had Robbie Hummel not tore his ACL that year that we were number 1 ranked team at Purdue, and then he ended up tearing his knee up at Minnesota, we still end up being the number 4 seed or number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, but we would have been a number 1 seed, and I think we would have had a really good path to get to the Final Four if he would have been healthy.
Were you still at Purdue when Missouri was really hot after Matt Painter?
No. That was actually the time that I had just left to go to Clemson. And to me, that was the most hectic Final Four that I ever had. Because I had just got the the associate head coaching job at Clemson, but I was involved in some head coaching opportunities. Conzo Martin had just left Purdue to go be the head coach at Missouri State, and that was a rumor mill as far as like Matt Painter being offered a job at Mizzou. So there were people asking me, trying to get on Conzo Martin's staff at Missouri State. There were people trying to wanted to get in there as far as replacing Conzo Martin at Purdue. And then there was people trying to get involved if Matt Painter took the job at Mizzou, and then if Paul Lusk would get the job at Purdue. So I couldn't get through a lobby without somebody hitting me up about like wanting to get on either to a potential landing spot for myself as a head coach, or replacing me at Clemson, or going with Paint over to Mizzou, or replacing Conzo Martin, or getting on Conzo Martin's staff. I couldn't get through the lobby. It was ridiculous.
So that's the life of a basketball coach, though.
Yeah. And those, you understand, people are trying to take opportunity, and so the biggest thing that I always say was, when someone would ask me about like, hey, can I get Coach Painter's number, or can I get, Conzo Martin's number? And my response would be, do you have their cell phone number? And he was like, no. I said, well, if you don't have their cell phone number already, you're probably not going to get the job. So they're only going to hire people they already know.
And that's a tricky spot when someone asks you for a number, and that may be something that the coach really doesn't want out there, right?
Yeah, I know that they don't want that out there. So, those are my friends. And so, I've been in those situations, so I know how to handle it, but I'm just, real polite about it. Hey, they have their guys already. If you don't have their cell phone number, you're not going to be able to get involved with that job.
How flooded were you when you got the job at Southeast in terms of guys saying, hey, I would be a great fit for your staff at SEMO?
Yeah, that's something that's pretty commonplace. I went through it at Mississippi State. I remember when I first got the job at Mississippi State, and then by the time I landed there in Starkville, Mississippi, I had like 770 something text messages, all from people congratulating you, but most of it people wanting to get a job, because most of the time when an assistant coach gets a head coaching job, they know that they have 3 positions they have to fill. But a lot of head coaches, when they go from one particular situation to another, they have a staff. So they might make one change or what have you, but for the most part, those guys are going to be loyal and take their staff with them. But when an assistant coach gets a head coaching job, everybody knows, hey, he has a full staff to fill. And so that's why you get hit up even more. So, I mean, when I got the job here, I couldn't believe like how many people were trying to get involved with it. And some of them I thought in pretty good situations. So, you know, it's something there. The trust factor is huge when you're looking at staff, because the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have guys that are going to be role models for your guys on your team. And so, you know, you can't teach that at that point in time. So you want to make sure that you have guys that are going to be really good mentors toward the young men on our team. And the second thing is the most important thing in me in the recruiting part of it is our integrity. So we want to make sure we're doing everything by the guidelines of the NCAA rules, and we never want to step outside of those guidelines. So having somebody that I can trust that's going to do things the right way is really important to me.
Coach Rick Ray, we are at Wings, Etc., the Colfeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show. Redhawks host Hannibal LaGrange tonight at 7 o'clock. What are you finding right now? Is there a particular position that it's toughest to recruit now? Are bigs tougher to recruit? Is it pure shooters? Is it point guards? Or does it even work like that?
Oh, it's not even close. And I always joke around that this is the unicorn that we're always looking for. Finding a skilled 4-man, a skilled power forward that can do all the things that you want on the offensive end. And what I mean by that is having a guy like a Robbie Hummel, who's skilled enough to make threes, who's skilled enough to take people off the bounce, who's skilled enough to make high-low passes, to come off ball screens and do all the things that you want on the offensive end, but yet is tough enough to defend on the other end, because it usually goes one or two ways. You usually have a guy who's really, really tough that can defend on them, that can defend post guys, rebound for you, kind of a warrior for you, but they're not very skilled.
Can't score.
Yes, but you know, then the other point of it is you have guys that are really, really skilled, can shoot, pass, dribble, but then they're soft on the defensive end. So finding a combination of those two guys, to me, by far is the hardest position to recruit. That skilled 4-man that's tough enough to get things done for you on the defensive end.
So you got some skilled 4-men on your radar right now.
Yeah, but then trying to find that what we want. And so my staff gets frustrated with me because I'll watch him on tape and I say, man, he can shoot the ball, he can pass the ball, he's really good on the offensive end, but I don't think he's going to be able to rebound and defend for us. And then it'll be another guy who can really rebound, defend, is tough, but like, man, he can't shoot. And so like my staff gets frustrated with me, like, but you want a guy that can do both of those. I'm like, correct. And it's really hard to find those guys. So I think that skilled forward is the hardest position. And to me, the next thing is that 5 position, because what you want is you want somebody that's already developed skill wise, but is also can bang and do some things around there. But you know, those guys are really hard to get because everybody in the nation is looking for big guys.
Are you more willing, you personally, willing to take a chance on a guy that's skilled and you see has all the tools to be a good defender and rebounder, but maybe that's not emphasized where they're currently playing, or for a guy who is really tough, good rebounder, good defender, and you think has the skills to develop on the offensive end? Which are you, Rick Ray, more likely to take a chance on?
I'm more willing to take the guy who's a tough kid, a defender, a rebounder that plays really hard and has a work ethic, because I believe this: if you have a work ethic, if you truly do, will give you the tools necessary in order for you to get better. But taking a kid that doesn't have that willpower, that's not a tough kid, that's not a willing worker, he may have all the prerequisite skills to be a good basketball player on the offensive end, but he'll never like work good enough in order to get better on the defensive end for you. So, and then also it depends on what you have too, Eric. If you have a guy at that position that's already a tough kid that's going to rebound and work, then what you're more willing to do is probably take a kid who's a little bit more skilled, as far as that next position, because now it's like, what do you need? If a team you need some skill, you need some shooting, then you play that kid. If you need a guy who's a tough rebounder because the other team has a 4-man, it's just kind of a tough, rugged guy, then you play the other guy. So I like having different guys at the same position. And so now you can kind of play those guys against each other.
Is it tough sometimes? Let's just say you're recruiting a junior college player, and they emphasize offense. The kid's good on offense. They don't emphasize defense, but you think he can be a good defender once he's in more of a structured defensive setting?
Yeah, to me, a lot of times what you must do is you must recruit programs. And what I mean by that is, like, if you got a junior college kid and he comes from a really good program, and when that junior college, you've been to their practice and it's structured, they make them play hard, they hold them accountable on and off the court, and like, hey, this kid will have zero problem with the transition from going to junior college to college because he's been exposed to those things before. But if you go to another junior college and it's kind of shaky as far as like their discipline, but the kid is talented but doesn't do some things that you think he can do, he's probably not going to make that transition from junior college to college because he hasn't been exposed to it before. So I'm much more on trying to recruit programs than I am that particular player at those times.
How about the guys who you've already signed? Ray Kowalski, tremendous shooter, and Denzel Mahoney. What can you tell us about them? I know Mahoney has been battling a knee surgery, right?
Right. Denzel actually got hurt and tore his ACL the last session of July recruiting period in AAU. And truth be told, he probably would have went higher than us if it wasn't for that knee injury. So we hung in there with him. And, Denzel was the hardest working kid that I saw on the circuit in July, regardless of positions, regardless of like this guy being a high major, this guy being a low major. His work ethic and his like diving for loose balls, rebounding, blocking out, defending, running the court. I mean, he's a tenacious player. And so I knew even with that ACL injury that he would attack the rehab the same way he does on the court. So I had zero concerns about him in that regard. So he's a young man that's a 6'5" kid. He's already got a college-ready body. He's a strong kid. He's a tough kid. He can really shoot the basketball. He's a guy that can really pass the ball and handle at 6'5". So he's going to have a skill level coming in already. And he's not a big-time athlete like an Antonius Cleveland. His athleticism is through his strength. He's a guy that's going to really shed people because of that. So I'm excited about him, and he's really going to provide some toughness to this team.
Is he a 3 or a 4?
He's a 3.
He's a 3.
Yeah, he's a 3. Ray Kowalski is a 2, a true shooting guard. And I thought that he was one of the better shooters that we saw, regardless of position, regardless of high major, low major, mid major. He can just really, really stroke the basketball. He's one of those kids that like you love to have on your team, because he's going to always be playing hard, getting underneath people's skin and kind of antagonizing people a little bit.
A Craig Bradshaw type.
Like Craig Bradshaw type. But like if you were playing against him, you would absolutely hate playing against him. And he's going to be that fan base where people don't like him because of the way he attacks things. But he's had 5 straight games over 30 points. He has been the player of the week in Charlotte 3 times already. He's on a really good high school team. Actually, one of his teammates is just a 2018 kid who's a sophomore right now, just committed to North Carolina as a point guard. He's a 6'6" point guard. So they've got a really talented team. And so he's a guy that's going to be able to come in right away. He's a strong, physical kid that's going to be able to come in and make shots for us right away. He's a good ball handler, a guy that can pass the basketball, but he's one of those cocky kids that knows he's good. You got to prove to him that he's not a good player.
When we say Craig Bradshaw, for those who don't know, preseason player of the year for Belmont, started since his freshman year in this league, and you could see he was an all-conference guy from day one. You anticipate, I know everybody's going to compete for positions, but Kowalski's a guy that could step in and start as a freshman.
Well, he's a young man that has the ability to do so. You just don't know about that transition from high school to college. It's the most difficult transition that you can make. So the speed of the game, may be a problem for him. Him being able to pick up on everything, but he's a very bright young man. He wants to major in actuarial science. He's a guy that's got over a 4.0 GPA. All his academic things is off the chart. So I think he'll be able to pick up on things pretty easily. So now it's just that transition from the speed and the strength from high school to college. But he'll have a chance to help us right away with his ability to shoot the basketball.
Speaking of shooting the basketball, Tennessee Tech. A lot of people may not have known this going in before you played them. They shoot the three better than Belmont. Statistics say they shoot the three better than Belmont. They were on fire, especially their shooting guard on Saturday night. Alexa Hugovich, I believe he had 25 points in the first 12 minutes. I mean, sometimes a guy gets in a zone. SIU Edwardsville had a guy like that the other day when they I believe when they knocked off Eastern Kentucky. So when a guy gets in a zone like that, sometimes you feel helpless against a guy like that.
Yeah, and truth be told, we did a really poor job of making sure our guys had a sense of urgency about where that young man was on the court. We talked about his shooting prowess. We label guys different NBA players. We labeled him as a Steph Curry, which means that in no way, shape, or form are you ever to help off of him. You must find him in transition. So I think we did a poor job of conveying the information to our players about having a sense of urgency about where he is. But the other part of it, too, is I don't think our guys understood how well he shot the basketball and how quickly he got off. He doesn't need any time. He doesn't need any space. And so he got hot, but we had serious scouting report breakdowns on that young man for him to get that many points in a short amount of time.
I tell you one thing with Tech, their only loss was a 96-90 loss to UT Martin. And Martin was shooting out of their minds. I think they hit 16 three-pointers in the game. Now, Tech hit 10, 16 threes. Only Belmont has made more in a game this year. So it took a game like that to beat Tennessee Tech. I was as impressed with Tech as I was with Belmont, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I tell you this, and I think the difference is the horses that they have inside. Anthony Morse right now is shooting 85% from the field in league play. So that means every time he gets it, he's going to score. And so, he's a guy because of that threat that he has around the rim. I mean, I just think that with the size that they have and the combination of that point guard and their shooting ability and the wings that they have, I mean, I think they're as good as anybody in our league at this point in time.
I can't wait to see Tech play Tennessee State and Tech play Belmont. I mean, the Tech looks like they're a championship contender to me, and not just with our game. You just go back and look at the other games they played so far.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think they have the offensive firepower to be very good, but I also think they do a good job on the defensive end as well, too. Now, I think Tennessee State is probably the best team that we played defensively so far. I think Moorhead is more difficult to prepare for, but you can kind of get some things there because Moorhead spreads you out more because they're denying. But I think Tennessee State is a really sound defensive team and a physical team. So it'll be interesting to see Tennessee State's defense against Tennessee Tech's offense, and then also against a Belmont.
All right, the guy who we're going to talk to here in a moment, Tony Anderson. This is your recruit. You inherited, almost a full roster when you got here, but you went out and recruited Tony Anderson. He's really starting to come on, 4 straight double-figure scoring games. What can you tell us about the recruiting process with Tony Anderson and what you've seen with the evolution of his game now?
Well, the first thing about Tony Anderson, I think he's an outstanding young man. He's a guy that really goes about his business the right way and does things the right way, and it's really important to him that he represents himself the right way. So he's just really good to deal with off the court. 0 problems off the court. Serious about his academics, does everything he's supposed to do. On the basketball part of it, I think Tony is really starting to understand his role now and what he must do in order to be successful. His field goal percentage has really shot up here these past few games because he's taking excellent shots and kind of understanding, when to attack, when not to attack. And that's hard for high school kids coming into college, because a lot of things they got away with in high school, they simply can't do at this college level right there. And it's like, well, I was able to do this in high school, beat my man one-on-one, there's no help, or do some other thing, because they weren't playing against college players all the time. So it's really a shock to them sometimes that offensively they can't do some of the things they did in high school and have that success. So I think he's starting to figure that part of it. And the other thing of it too is, like say your biggest strength is your biggest weakness. Well, Tony's biggest strength is his versatility. He can make threes, he can make 15-footers, he can score with his back to the basket, he can make turnaround fadeaway shots. But also at some point in time, those are not good shots, even though they're available to him at that point in time. So his versatility sometimes is his biggest weakness, him trying to figure out when to take those shots, when to attack. I think he's starting to figure that out, and that's why you're seeing him scoring double figures and also seeing him get to the free throw line, which is the biggest thing that I wanted from him as far as like being more aggressive. He was 7 to 8 from the free throw line. I think he's been 5 or 6 from the free throw line. And once he gets there, he knocks the free throws down.
Yeah, he was 7 of 8 against EKU, 6 for 6 against Jacksonville, and I think he made his only 2 free throws in the game against Tennessee Tech. Now, how do you see him being a rebounder? He had 1 rebound and 10 points the other night against Tennessee Tech. However, in the Jacksonville game, I think he had 5 or 6. Same way at Eastern Kentucky. How do you rate him as a guy who could be a big rebounder for you?
Yeah, and that's something that he has to improve on. And we've talked about that. And it's not just the rebound. Sometimes when you look at his stats, he'll have 6 rebounds, but 3 of them were offensive. And 3 of them were defensive. What we want to see him do is have those 6 to 8 defensive rebounds. Now, part of that is he's still growing into his body. He's a true freshman. He's not a prep school freshman or anything like that. So he still has some development as far as like skill. And the one thing I always tell these guys is like, you're 18 years old, and sometimes you're playing against 21 and 22-year-old men that have a 5th-year senior or a graduate transfer or a 4-year Division I transfer. So they've got about 3 or 4 years of strength and conditioning behind him that you don't have. And I think what you'll see is you'll see his rebounding numbers increase as his mobility and his strength increases.
Yeah, like he's going up against Anthony Morris, a 5th-year senior, who went from 215 pounds last year to 230 this year. He put on 15 pounds of muscle, and he's having his best collegiate season. Boy, that's a big advantage for Tech in a matchup with a true freshman. I thought he held his own pretty well, though.
Yeah, I think that's a huge advantage. And what you want to see is now you want to see a guy like Tony Anderson understand like how important this offseason is. There's no question. They say the biggest gain that you ever make as a college basketball player is the first offseason that you spend after your first Division I college basketball season. So for a freshman, it'll be the biggest jump that you'll make in your game is between your freshman and sophomore season. For a junior college kid, the biggest jump that you'll see them make is between their junior and senior year, because now they understand what they must do in order to be successful at this level. So we hope to have that same jump from Tony Anderson that a guy like Anthony Morris had.
You play so much zone defense with this team. Is this something you see going forward? You're going to be primarily zone, or when you feel like you've got maybe the athletes, maybe you play a little more man-to-man, and rebounding out of a zone, it can be tricky a lot of times.
Yeah, this is not the way that I want to play. I've always been a really, really good defensive coach. When I was at head coach at Mississippi State, we were always in the tops of the league of our field goal percentage of defense, our scoring defense. I've always been a guy that's been around really good man-to-man defensive coaches like Brad Brownell and Matt Painter. But I thought because of our personnel, not having enough bodies, but more importantly, guys not being exposed to the man-to-man defense that I want to play, that we wouldn't have success. So I'm more disappointed in myself than I am at the players. The players are just doing the things that we want them to do. So I've got to put our guys in a better situation for them to be successful on the court, because our defensive numbers right now are just bad. And so we've got to figure out a way to have a balance between the two. But, I want to be a man-to-man defensive team. I want to be a team that pressures you and takes you out of things. They say the best thing about Bill Belichick's teams is defensively, he's going to take away your strength. And so that's what we want to do with our defense. So I've got to make some concessions of maybe not having the personnel that I need and want in order to be successful, to be a really good man-to-man defensive team. But it's painfully obvious, that our zone defense right now is not giving us the results that we need. And so we're doing some things to tinker with that to make sure that we can be more successful on the defensive end.
All right, we're going to talk with Tony Anderson when we come back. He is here, Redhawks freshman. And if you are here in the building, make sure you get up to our table up front here. We have some St. Louis Blues tickets that we're going to be giving away at the end of the show. Blues and the San Jose Sharks. They are for Thursday night, February 4th at 7 o'clock at Scott Trade Center. You must register. The registration box is right there, so make sure you do that during the commercial break. Tony Anderson joins us next when we return to Wings, Etc. Kofeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show.
On game day, and people are hungry. More than that, they're hangry, and it's 95 degrees out and they're thirsty. That's right, people are thrangry. They need to chill, and that gives you an idea. You remember Coors Light is filtered and bottled cold, so you pass some cold ones out. Suddenly it's like they're snowboarding the majestic Rocky Mountains, speeding away from the peaks of Thrangry and down the slopes of yes. So they make with the cheering and let you get with the grilling. Well done. Now it's time for your Coors Light. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Great beer, great responsibility.
You've upgraded from your old flip phone. But what about that old vehicle in your driveway? It's time to get into the new with Ford. New is Ford, America's best-selling brand, because new is the power and performance of available EcoBoost engine technology, and new can practically park itself with available active park assist. So get into the new with Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer or go to Ford.com for current offers. Sales claim based on 2015 calendar year sales, January through November.
The conversation has been growing about Wings, Etc. See, Wings, Etc. has those award-winning jumbo wings. They're popular for both dine-in and carry-out. Now, the word is getting out about Wings, Etc.'s appetizer lineup. From the ultimate nachos to the deep-fried pickle spears, frankly, they're irresistible. Friends are sharing time together at Wings, Etc. They've got dining rooms filled with HD TVs tuned to the best sports programming, including NFL Sunday Ticket. The people at the next table are talking about Wings, Etc.'s daily half-pound lunch special, starting at just $6.49. Plus, Wings, Etc. has food and drink specials throughout the week, including 59-cent wings every Monday. Plus, there's the kids menu, and Wings, Etc. is family-friendly with video games in the dining room. And the whole community is excited about how Wings, Etc. is locally owned and operated, and they're proud to support local athletes, their families, schools, and teams. I guess Wings, Etc. is a really big deal around here.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network local weather forecast.
The National Weather Service says the winter weather advisory in effect for tonight, with clouds today and a high of 27, then snow likely before midnight mixed with sleet, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches possible by early tomorrow. Chance of snow and sleet in the morning tomorrow with a high of 33, then another batch of snow, freezing rain on Thursday night with a high hovering near 34.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN Radio Network.
Well, dude, obviously you'd be better as the focal point of the show. Would I be better for society? No.
Don't miss Russillo and Cano every weekday at noon on SEMO ESPN.
It's the Kofeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show. We are at Wings, Etc. in Cape Girardeau with Redhawks head coach Rick Ray. Tonight is $2 Tuesday at the Show Me Center. That means $2 tickets, and they've got varied $2 concessions. That is hot dogs for $2. You've got small popcorn, small drinks. $2 Tuesday at the Show Me Center. So we hope to have a big crowd as the Redhawks take on the Hannibal LaGrange Trojans. They come in 3-12. They are riding an 11-game losing streak. So the Redhawks are looking to send them to defeat number 12 in a row, a team that shoots a lot of threes, but doesn't have a lot of size. So we'll see. We got a guy here who does have a lot of size, Tony Anderson, who is 6 feet 9 inches tall. When did you go through your growth spurt, or were you always the tallest guy in your class?
Oh, I was always tall. Like, I would grow like 3 inches every year. So, like, I was always tall.
So you're the tallest guy on the playground, then that means that you probably commanded a little respect when you're the big guy, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, everybody knew not to play with me on the court.
let's talk about how tall are your parents? I mean, are you from a tall family? Or are you the one tall person?
No, everybody's tall. Like my mom, she's 5'10". My dad's 6'4". My brother's like 6'2", 6'3". My little cousin, she's like 6 foot, and she's like a freshman in high school.
She play basketball?
Yeah, basketball and volleyball.
Basketball and volleyball.
Yeah.
That size is good in volleyball as well. What was it like growing up in Columbus, Ohio?
Oh, it was good. Midwest. It's always cold, but like it was a good family environment that I liked about it.
Well, you get down here, we really haven't had any cold weather until the last few days, man. Up in Columbus, Ohio, man, you guys probably had a foot of snow every winter, right?
Yeah, like 3 inches one time, like ankle deep. So like it'd be cold.
So playing basketball, was that the only sport you played growing up? Did you play baseball? Did you play volleyball, football, anything else?
Actually, I played a little bit of everything growing up. Like when I first started playing sports, I played soccer, football, basketball, pretty much everything. Then like as time went on, like I just started cutting sports off that I wasn't good at. So then we came football, basketball, and then one year we was in a car and my dad was like, all right, man, you gotta pick one now, because like you got to take off on one sport and you have to keep building back up. You gotta pick one. So I picked basketball.
How tough was it to not pick football when you're right there where the Ohio State Buckeyes are? I'm guessing you grew up a Buckeye fan.
Yeah. It was tough because like I was a natural football player and basketball was a challenge to me. But like, I kept getting taller and I kept thinking about my knees playing football. I was like, they're gonna try to take me out. I can't do it. So I just like, let me play basketball. It's a challenge to me. Let me take on this challenge.
How big of a challenge has it been to go from high school to Division I? Was it as big a jump as you thought it was going to be? I know you probably have, you're watching film, you're watching college games. You're saying, hey, I can do that, what those guys are doing. Yeah. Once you get in there day in, day out, practice, get in Division I games, how big of a jump was it for you?
Well, the jump for me was all mental. Like coming in, like I had to like really like sit back and like really like understand like the whole game. Like in high school, everything like was like simple. But now in high school, now in college, like it's like a different lot of techniques and schemes you gotta understand. You gotta read the defense. So like I watched like a lot of film on my own to like really like so the game will slow down in my head so I can watch the game. So pretty much it's all mental for real.
Tony Anderson, our guest here, Coalfeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show. We're at Wings, etc. in Cape. Redhawks play at home tonight, 7 o'clock on $2 Tuesday. So here you are at 6 feet 9 inches tall, but you've got a pretty good perimeter game. So you're not really a true back to the basket guy, although we see that you can do that.
Right. Yeah. Growing up, like I was always tall, but I didn't know how tall I was going to be. So like in middle school, I was like a back to basket player, but then high school came on. I was like, let me add more to my game. So I got that mid range game. Then I was good at that. Then I added the outside game. Then I worked on my ball handling. Next thing I know, I kept growing. I'm like, why not keep it? Keep everything I got. So I just started implementing everything I got in my game. Smaller guy on me, take him down. Bigger guy on me, take him out. Wide open, knock it down. So I pretty much just implement my game every way I can.
So your junior year, you played at Oak Hill Academy. That's a pretty prestigious place to play basketball. What was that like?
It was good. Like, coming in, it was kind of like a big adjustment for me because, I didn't really know what to expect. But like as time went on, like I adjusted pretty quick to it because like being away from home, it was kind of like everything was new. Like being like a national schedule, playing with all these big time guys, having a Hall of Fame coach like Steve Smith, everything was new. But like once I like settled down and like really understood that I'm here and they're here with me, so I might as well just make the best out of it.
Now Oak Hill, is that in Virginia?
Mount the Woods in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a little ways away. How challenging was that for your parents to come and watch you play?
Well, they made much games they could, but like it was adjustment for everybody. Like adjustment for me, adjustment for them. Like my mom, she cried before I even went. I'm like, Mom, it's like I'm in high school still. Wait till I go to college to cry and stuff. but she cried. My dad tried to hold back some tears, but it was good for everybody. I think that transition there helped me out coming to college.
I was going to say, because there are a lot of guys that they get homesick. I mean, quite frankly, it's their first time away from home, but you had already undergone that.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like my parents, when I came home for Christmas break, they wanted me to go back. I'm like, can I lay down for a minute? Like, no, you got to get out. I'm like, man.
So you play at Oak Hill Academy. Some of the names for, just to kind of say how prestigious Oak Hill is. Yeah. Carmelo Anthony played at Oak Hill Academy. Rajon Rondo. We're talking some big-time collegiate and NBA players played there.
Right, yeah. Like in practice, like you see everybody's jersey on the wall. You see like the Hall of Fame guys, like all that. It was like wow, like all these big-time guys play here. Like people I look up to play here.
And so all of a sudden, you're starting to play against some of the premier high school programs in the country. What was that like? Who's the best player you ever played against?
Probably Jalil Okafor. Yeah, that was a TV game too. Like that's when I really understood. I was like, wow, I'm on like the biggest high school stage possible. Like when I'm over here guarding Jalil Okafor, and like it was just crazy. Then I'm watching D'Angelo play against us and all this other stuff. We playing at the Madison Square Garden. I'm like, I'm only a junior in high school. I'm not even in college yet. That's when I really understood, like, there ain't no bigger than this in high school.
So you originally committed to Toledo.
Right.
Then you decided, well, maybe not. Maybe I don't want to go to Toledo. And then all of a sudden, the Redhawks contact you. Tell us about the recruiting process.
Man, well, the recruiting process, it was tough since my freshman year. Like, it was a lot of stuff that I had to, like, go through. Coaches that came and left. So, with Toledo, they came and I was like, it was a good situation. Then, the coaching staff, like we didn't really click. And like, for me, like I'm a big, like relationship kind of guy. And like, we didn't really like click like that. So I didn't see myself there on a certain situation.
You could just feel it wasn't going to be right for you.
Yeah. Like actually, like, after I committed, I went, up there again with my parents and we was walking the court and my dad was like, you see yourself here? And I was like, no. He was like, I was like, no, I don't see myself here. Then like 2 days later, I called the coach. I was like, can't do this. And he was understandable. Then right after that, the recruiting process started right back over again.
So once schools found out that you were no longer committed to Toledo, did your phone blow up?
All the time.
What was it like when you got contacted by Southeast Missouri State?
Actually, I was asleep when they called me. I'm like, who is this random number calling me? I'm like, who is this? Like, I mean, Southeast is like it's an hour behind Columbus, so it's like midnight. I'm like, who is this? I was like, oh, okay. So I looked into it. I'm like, okay, this sounds like a good fit. Time went on. I met Coach Ray, met the other coaching staff. Time went on. And, I was like, came down my visit official. It was pretty good. I liked it down here. I played with the guys. Made everybody feel comfortable. I was like, why not? Let's do it.
What was your first meeting with Coach Ray like?
Oh, it was good. He implemented his rule, tell the truth. I was like, I can't slip it all around this guy. Like I got to tell him everything was going on. So he was understandable. He was straight up with me. I was straight up with him. That's why we got a good relationship now.
All right. All of a sudden, you've turned into a double-digit scorer every time out. What has been the key for your game to all of a sudden you're a little bit more of an offensive player?
Just confidence, like really like understanding like I can play this game at this level. Faith is another big thing. God empowered me to play this game. So go out there and glorify him with this game. So really just pretty much just going out there and knowing that I could play this game. I know who goes before me at this game. And like my teammates, like they encourage me all the time. Like, you can score. I'm like, all right, why not? So like my coaches, like they do a good job, like putting me in situations for me to score. So I was like, that's not some shots now.
I think there's been some divine intervention from the free throw line. You started the season, it was a struggle. And then all of a sudden, here comes Eastern Kentucky, 7 for 8, then 6 for 6 against Jacksonville State, 2 for 2 against Tennessee State. What clicked in that aspect of the game?
I think just really concentration slowing down. My first two games, I shot terrible from the free throw line. Dayton, I was 0 for 4, and then Evansville, I was like 1 for 4. And I was like, man, like I shoot good free throws.
Were you nervous?
Like I think it was my adrenaline. Like, my first college game, I was a freshman. I started that game actually. I'm like my energy is pumping. I'm bricking. I'm like, let me calm down a little bit. So I really just like got my touchdown, like really started focusing on the shots. Because in practice, I'm knocking out all my free throws. In the game, I was bricking them. I'm like, this don't add up. So I just slowed down. Took my time, knocked him down.
There are so many people that say the big exhale right before you take the free throw. Does that help?
Yeah, it really does. Because before you get fouled, like you going hard to the basket and you get fouled, so like your adrenaline is still going. So you got to get to the free throw line, calm down, and then let it fly.
Is there ever any smack talk from the free throw line? You're not going to make this free throw.
Oh,
you ever hear that stuff?
Yeah, I hear it all the time, but never speak for themselves.
What was it like going up against one of the better front court guys, Morse, on Saturday night? A guy that's 230 pounds, a guy that has 90 Division I games under his belt, really crafty around the basket. What was it like playing against one of the better front court guys in the league on Saturday night?
Oh, it was good though. He played a real good game, but I feel like I did pretty good against him. It was a good challenge for me to see where I was at, physicality wise, defensively and offensively against him. So I feel like it was a good game for me, to see where I was at. And I think it was a good challenge for me.
All right, you got Hannibal LaGrange coming up tonight. What's been the scouting report? What have you guys been working on?
Oh, well, actually, Coach implemented the man defense for us. He came in. He came in and was like, "This is not working. We got to change it up." I'm a real good man defensive coach. I was like, "All right, let's do it then." So he came in. He broke everything down. Everybody's talking again. Practice actually was energetic for a long time. Well, for the first time in a long time, and everybody was getting after it. The coaches was getting after it. It was a real good vibe at practice. And
so it was a fun practice.
Yeah, it was a fun practice. I got banged up a couple times, but it's all right though.
All right, you've got UT Martin this weekend. I'm sure you guys will implement the scouting report coming up, but another team that shoots the 3-point shot really well. What are your thoughts about social media? Are you on Twitter?
Oh yeah. I'm
let's get your Twitter handle here, see if we can get you a follower.
Tony Anderson __2 underscores.
2 underscores.
2 underscores.
That seems like that would be a fairly common name. So it was probably tough to figure out. Okay, what's going to be my Twitter account?
My first name and last name both common. Type my name on Google, you might never find me. You might never find me. You gotta type in SEMO or basketball or something. The actor Anthony Anderson had the same name as him. That's why I go by Tony, because he got that name locked down. So I was like,
there it is, Tony Anderson __. If you want to follow him on Twitter. Thanks so much for the time, and we'll see you tonight at the Show Me Center. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, that's Tony Anderson. And we'll take one quick timeout, come back, wrap it up with Coach Ray. And in addition to the Blues tickets, we'll give them away right after the break. We have a Redhawk scarf, perfect timing with the cold weather. We got a Redhawk t-shirt and a Redhawk water bottle to give away. That's after the break. Final timeout. Coach Ray back to wrap it up after this. You're listening to the Colfeld Distributing Redhawks Coaches Show on SEMO ESPN from Wings, etc.
From your old flip phone. But what about that old vehicle in your driveway? It's time to get into the new with Ford. New is Ford, America's best-selling brand, because new is the power and performance of available EcoBoost engine technology, and new can practically park itself with available active park assist. So get into the new with Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer or go to Ford.com for current offers. Sales claim based on 2015 calendar year sales, January through November.
The conversation has been growing about Wings, etc. See, Wings, etc. has those award-winning jumbo wings. They're popular for both dine-in and carry-out. Now, the word is getting out about Wings, etc.'s appetizer lineup. From the ultimate nachos to the deep-fried pickle spears, frankly, they're irresistible. Friends are sharing time together at Wings, etc. They've got dining rooms filled with HD TVs tuned to the best sports programming, including NFL Sunday Ticket. The people at the next table are talking about Wings, etc.'s daily half-pound lunch special, starting at just $6.49. Plus, Wings, etc. has food and drink specials throughout the week, including 59-cent wings every Monday. Plus, there's the kids menu, and Wings, etc. is family-friendly with video games in the dining room. And the whole community is excited about how Wings, etc. is locally owned and operated, and they're proud to support local athletes, their families, schools, and teams. I guess Wings, etc. is a really big deal around here.
For the Saturday Morning Express. Catch it every Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. on ESPN.
Final segment with Coach Rick Ray. We are at Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau. Does Nate Savarino have some New England Patriots gear on back there, Joe? Yeah, I think Nate Savarino lost a bet, Coach, and so now he's got to, because it was Chiefs and Patriots. And so obviously Nate is the Chiefs fan, and there it is. It's a Tom Brady jersey that Joe Hobbs is holding up right now. And I think that Nate has to put the jersey on now. You're a Kansas City Chiefs guy because you're a Kansas City guy.
I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. And so I walk in today and I see Hobbs like with all this Patriots gear on. I said, just rub it in. Why don't you?
So it was not fun walking in here knowing that Hobbs was going to be needling you.
Well, I can see the correlation with him being a New England Patriots fan. You know how close proximity we are to New England.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I can see how it all makes sense. Not a bandwagon guy or anything like that at all.
A natural fit. All right, you've got Hannibal LaGrange coming to the Show Me Center tonight. This is an NAIA squad. They're riding an 11-game losing streak. They shoot a lot of threes. And at least on paper, boy, they struggle rebounding the basketball. So there's a place where you probably have an advantage on paper tonight.
Yeah, we want to make sure we get the ball inside. We've got to take advantage of them not having the size to hopefully keep us from having some success in the paint. But the thing I'm most concerned about is two things. I think our effort on the defensive end must increase. And I think we've done a good job here in these past couple practices of addressing some things with that defensively. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a re-energized team that's really focused on the defensive end and doing some of the things that I think that we could be good at, and some of the things that I've coached that I thought I've done a really good job of coaching. And then on the offensive end, we've got to make sure I showed our guys of our last game against Tennessee Tech, where we just took about 15 really, really bad shots, where there was just no passes coming across the court or one pass, and we can't be that team. We've got to be a team that works the shot clock. Obviously, if we have something in transition, we want to take advantage of that. But if it's not there, we've got to make sure we make that team play defense and use the shot clock. So I want to see us be much more efficient on the offensive end, but defensively, I just want to see us playing with a lot more intensity and doing some of the things that we can do that I think we're more than capable of doing.
All right, your top player, Antonius Cleveland, your all-conference guard, has missed the last 2 games with a wrist. I know the ligament partially torn. He's kept it immobilized for the most part. I know he won't play tonight. Do you have an injury update with Antonius?
Yeah, he's still in that same brace, and we haven't taken him out of that brace. We'll have an off day tomorrow. And then Amanda, our athletic trainer, she'll start doing some things with him as far as flexing that wrist and getting treatment on there. So hopefully trying to get him prepared for Saturday. There could have been maybe a case where he could have played today, but I doubt it, and we wouldn't want to push that right now. But our goal is to have him there for Saturday, but it's all about his reaction to being out of that brace and how he does with deflection and range of motion and things like that. So I'll always err on the side of caution when I'm dealing with injuries, because we want to make sure our guys are there for the long term rather than short term. And more importantly, I'm more concerned about the student athletes' welfare.
All right, we won't get into UT Martin much, but we will say they have the number 1 3-point shooter in terms of percentage in the league, and they have another 3-point shooter who has made the second most threes in the league. That'll be a concern on Saturday night.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And what we just went through with Tennessee Tech, I think will be a great teacher. You don't want to experience like failure to be a teacher, but, us not letting that guy get loose from the 3-point line was really a disappointment. So hopefully we learn from that and do a much better job against UT Martin in that regard.
All right, we're going to give away the prizes right after we sign off the show. We've got the PA here, and the only people that are here are going to win anyway. So don't forget, $2 tickets tonight, $2 hot dogs, popcorn, soda. It's $2 Tuesday, 7 o'clock tip-off with Hannibal LaGrange. Coach, thanks so much. We'll see you at the Show Me Center tonight.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, that's Coach Rick Ray, and that's going to do it from Wings, etc. We're right back here next Tuesday. Coach Ray will join us. Coach Rika Patterson will join us as they have a first-place showdown at SIU Edwardsville tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. ESPN Radio coming up. So long, everybody, from Wings in Cape.
Southeast Missouri's ESPN Radio Sports Network. 92.9 KLSC Holden, 1220 KGIR, Cape Girardeau. And